Hi, beautiful souls. This is Sadhana. Welcome to my channel. I have never done a VR to the tarot tag, my first deck. And I thought today I would take you on a little bit of a journey through my first deck and how the Robin Wood kind of came to be my go-to deck for many, many years and how I got into the tarot and all that sort of thing. I have decided to show the Robin Wood alongside the small version of the Centennial. So this is the US Games Waite Smith Tarot deck in a tin. And this is my original version of the Robin Wood Tarot. And I'm just going to show the cards side by side just so you have something to compare it against. Because sometimes when we see a deck in isolation, we forget what the traditional deck looks like. So that's why I'm just going to show you the two side by side. I began, I believe, with a kit called Easy Tarot. And in that kit, there was a spreadsheet, quite a thick guidebook. There were two small decks, so a Thoth deck and an RWS deck. I don't think I ever cracked the Thoth deck, maybe once just to look at it. And then I worked with the RWS and worked through all the journaling and all of the exercises in that book. And I bought another tarot book and tried to understand the symbols more and did more exercises and work with the RWS. And I just couldn't connect with the colors and the symbols. And I can't remember exactly how it happened. It was probably Banyan Books in Vancouver, BC, where I came upon the Robin Wood. And they have, even in those days, so this was probably 20 years ago, had a large selection of tarot decks and samples of every single deck so you could hold them and touch them and feel them and go through them. And I really fell in love with this kind of shift in color. And the color of the Robin Wood really resonated with me. There was a sense of lightness. And I immediately took to the kind of Wiccan appeal. I purchased at the same time the larger guidebook, or soon after that. And I really appreciated Robin's sense of humor and her whole story and journal of how her deck was created. I just love the, what do you call it? I can't even think what you call it. The collar that is around the magician here. So this deck became my deck, and I used it on a daily practice as I was studying and working with the tarot. Just let me move that up for you a little bit. How I got into the tarot was quite an interesting story. So one of my daughters was having night terrors, and being the kind of person I was and always connected with my intuitive self, I knew that it was not just night terrors, and she was actually having clairvoyant experiences at night. And so I did my best to try to have conversations with her and to help her through it and give her strategies. And I, at some point, needed help, and I reached out to someone in the community where I was living, and they did a few readings for me and tried to pick up on the energy of what was going on with my daughter. And it was tarot, it was intuitive, and I just really connected with the cards. And at that time, I remember she had several decks on her table, and I got to pick a deck. And there was something about holding the cards and feeling the cards and just the way the cards kind of laid themselves out in the spread and the reading. I felt completely at home. And so I think it was from that point that I decided to explore the tarot. And I went to all kinds of special events, had lots of readings for myself, and it was quite a magical journey, and I went quite deep, quite fast. And the Robin Wood, when it finally came into my hands, just felt so right. And I do not carry it in my basket right now. I carried it for years as, when a lot of people go out and they do readings, they want to have kind of a basic deck. But my collection is so extensive right now, I tend to carry my favorite decks and with a few different themes in mind. but I would always go back to this deck. It's just really, really beautiful. I love the unicorns pulling the chariot here. And the eyes in that black unicorn are just really, really stunning. And here we have the chariot driver is playing a harp, right? So there's this energy that's coming from the harp. There's no need to have the reins. This is just beautifully, oh, sorry. I really like this deck and haven't seen it for a while. So I'm kind of being a little bit sentimental, reminiscing. Yeah. I want to share with you quite a few things in the large guidebook just because of its depth of experience and the way it is so accessible for beginner readers. I like that the pictures are clearer too. I think that was something that really helped me in working with the tarot. It was that the drawings were easier for me to focus on. Right? I find with the older decks, when the images are not so clear, I don't know. I just found this way more accessible, and I connected with it on a very deep level. But you'll see that, it's based in RWS and a lot exactly the same symbols, with the white rose and so forth. Yeah, it just mixes it up a little bit and adds some different elements. And what do you think? I always liked this. Like, he's got these balls, these crystal balls, this angel, and it's very magical. And the same imagery, same flowers, same sun, 1 foot in the water, 1 foot on the land. The devil. I've always had a hard time with the man goat. I prefer the Celtic decks with the Serenos and that sort of thing, or some other kind of clever way to get the same message across as opposed to the traditional image of the devil. And also, instead of Roman numerals, we have Arabic numerals. And yes, baby on horse. So she didn't stray too far from a traditional deck, but it does have these lovely, more earthy elements that I resonated with very much at that time. And I love the idea of having the phoenix on the judgment card. That just makes so much sense to me. And then there's your world card. This is from the introduction to the chapter on wands. I'm going to begin by reminding you that although I am about to tell you why I chose the symbols I did for each card, these are just my interpretations and feelings. Common threads, everyone's symbol set is slightly different. An image that makes you feel relaxed and happy might have the opposite effect on you. So when you're reading the cards, go with your own symbol set. These cards, like any other deck, really mean what they seem to you to mean at the time you are doing the reading. If you relax and let it flow, your readings will be far more accurate than they will if you try to force a traditional meaning onto each card. By looking it up or by memorizing meanings. Don't feel that you are somehow wrong if what you see in a card is not what I was thinking about when I put it there. That's perfectly all right, and is why a reader is needed in the first place. Now, I read this book 20 years ago, but I think it really kind of sunk in deep with me. And so she really helped me to understand the symbology, the symbols, as well as the colors and the numerology and all of that, but also gave me permission to really go with my intuition and go with connection and storytelling and so much more. In the end of her book, she talks about creating a guidebook, a workbook to go with this larger book. And I don't know if she ever did. I remember at one point I looked for it on Amazon, but that would have been really on this. I just absolutely love the detail in the gate here. And the fact that her hair is in a net. There's this, she talks about hair in a lot of these cards, and that it's very intentional. So when the hair is free flowing, or when the hair is in a net or in a bun, to really kind of look at that, all the little subtle layers, like the braid here, the long plait at the back of this page of Pentacles is significant of something. And she did stick with the traditional hair colors and the traditional skin colors of the tarot. Yeah, the colors of this deck are, I just feel like I can walk into the story, and the level of detail, like the coloring in of her ink line drawings, it just really feels like a coloring book that was done with love. I love the King of Pentacles. And again, another ace that has so much more dynamic energy, right? The light, the use of light, and the, I don't know, it just feels, I feel the strength of the ace. I feel the energy of the ace. Whereas for me, in Pixie's art, it just falls kind of flat. Not saying, I mean, I have tremendous respect for this deck. I just, there was something about the Robin Wood that really helped get me into the mood and a love and a passion for tarot. And these particular archways here, the way that the rockwork has been eroded, I've actually been somewhere like this. And when you have those kind of connections, and see how the separation in this deck is created by, you know, it seems like she's on a cement platform or something, or she's at the edge of the castle. You don't get that kind of, you don't get that in the Robin Wood. She also plays a lot with the different, the hilts of the swords. Through the swords are often different colors, and she speaks to that and why she's chosen to decorate them in certain ways. And so you might pick up on that intuitively, or you might notice the blue sheath, for example, on the sword that's in the tree, and that might speak to you about something. And I always liked this kind of ethereal energy that was moving the boat forward. There's something about the energy of spirit in this card and this place of trust. You know, after going through the Five of Swords, we really need to get out of our minds and into our hearts, and to really trust that this next step forward is the right place that we're going. And the fact that the driver here, the rower of the boat, is only there in spirit. And so that you're being moved forward, you know, magically. She's really good with the facial expressions too. Yeah. Oh, and this is really cool. So in this deck, all of the swords are exactly the same. So they don't vary. The hilts are all the same. They're always the same color, the same shape. And intentionally in this card, I really like this message. All of the hilts of the swords, all of the swords are exactly the same. So it's not 9 problems. This is one problem. Like, this is the serious mountain you have built out of a molehill. And if you can reflect on that one thought, that might help move you out of the energy of that. And here's another example here. So all of these are different. And then there's a whole story to this one here in the middle. And so those stories may or may not play into a reading. And here's an example of the hair. So we have this kind of free, wild hairstyle of the Page of Swords, as opposed to that really neat braid of the Page of Pentacles. And I think that was her guidebook was really influential, and that it got me to really start to look at the details in the pictures, the really subtle images, and to question why artists, why creators have chosen certain things, and to learn to follow through on the common threads and allow the story to unfold. And I love this Queen of Swords. I have to say, it is one of my favorites. She is beautiful and she is strong. She's wielding the sword in her right hand, on the side of her strength, and her left hand is open to receiving. And you get that same energy here with the Queen of Swords in the Waite-Smith deck, but she's static and there's no movement. And I don't know, I just think Robin did a brilliant job in turning this flat artwork into something that is very much alive. Intentionally, the King of Swords is standing to show his strength. Yeah, and then here you've got your Ace of Wands. And yeah, intentionally, I believe, very phallic. So your 2 sunflowers below your wand. And so hopefully that doesn't offend anybody you're reading for. And the color really varies from card to card within each of the suits, depending on the mood and the message. This 5 of Wands is just great. Super, super active. And it almost feels like a dance. You know, like you need to participate in this. And if you step away, then the other 4 won't be able to carry on. It's like you have chosen to participate in this as long as it will go on. And I get that much more in the Robin Wood than I do in the Waite-Smith. The other thing I guess I should mention about the wands, she chose, I believe in the guidebook, she says that if she redid this deck, she would make the wands wood. But when she was creating this deck, there was this whole discussion about whether or not she was going to have the wands represent fire and the swords represent air, or vice versa. And then also with wood wands, with all of the energy going through the wood wands, would they burn up? And so she chose to make them metal with crystals on the ends of the wands. And at the time, she was really happy with that. And it gave her this opportunity to make them, you know, really decorative and unique and individual, and bring in some historical patterns and designs as well, too. But she would, like I said, go back and make them wood. Isn't this great? I just love how we've got Jupiter and with the earth down here, the fire. Yes, I should probably put this deck back in my basket. And wouldn't it be fun also if you were a crystal aficionado and you saw this connection, like in a particular color of a particular crystal in this suit, because it might actually have a message for you. So here's another example of that. To me, this is just, it doesn't make sense because this is a historical deck. Why would this appear to be, I guess this is ground, but you know, it looks like concrete to me. But I know it's not, it's just packed dirt the way it's been cleared. Yeah. And so here you have the Page of Wands, and notice how her hair is in a, it's tied at the back, but her hair is loose. So that's just an example of a theme that she's carried through. It's something that she mentions in each of the descriptions. And she's really good with body language too. So the court cards, the different people throughout the deck are facing in a variety of different directions. And then you have your cups. I'm not sure why I put the cards in this order. But I really get the cup flowing over. And this one. Okay. Almost looks same sex to me. Yeah, 3 of Cups. And this 5 of Cups, you know, is that blood? Is it red wine? What is, you know, I think the red really stands out in this card. And I know you do have red wine or red in this card as well too, but it really stands out here. And so that really invites the conversation as to what is being spilled. What is it that you're focusing on? 6, 7. And so let me know in the comments below if you use Robin Wood, if it's a deck that, or maybe it's completely new to you. What's your favorite card? From this deck, I went Osho Zen. That was my next kind of deck that I really delve deeply into. And the reason that came to mind was this card here, because the 9 of Cups in the Osho Zen is called laziness, I believe. And it speaks to the excess of the element and to be very, very cautious of when we get everything that we ask for, that we don't come into this place of complacency. And then there's your 10. And then the final quartz, your Page of Cups. Here you do have that cement, that concrete. So do you speak to separation when you have that in, when these cards come up? I don't know if I ever noticed this before, but it almost looks like this is a mer horse, if you know what I mean. And if you know the story of Venus coming out of the sea, being born from the foam of the sea, this kind of harkens back to that, having this shell thrown. And then there is the King of Cups. And this is my well-loved Robin Wood Tarot, the book. You can see it's very well worn. Second printing, 1999. And there's just a few things I wanted to share with you in here. So one is her story of how this deck was created is just worth the price of the book. This book is still available, I believe. And chapter 5, we have common symbols. And this is really nice because she goes through most of the symbols that are on her cards, and she has multiple keywords for each of those. Which for me at the beginning was really, really useful, rather than starting from scratch with myself and having to pull out multiple references. This was a really useful reference book, and it's quite a small book, so I was able to carry it with me everywhere I went. And then similarly, she has here her interpretations for the numbers. So numerologically, what are the ace through 10 and the basic energy of the king, queen, knight. And so these are really nice synopses. They're not too long. And then for each of the cards you have, so quite a large picture, so you can refer to that. And I love her keywords, so pay attention. And there's a description of the artwork, and then in tremendous detail, she goes through every single symbol in the card. And then at the end, she has more of a message. So the message really comes down here. So the message is at the beginning, at the end, and then sandwiched in between is reference to all of the symbols in each of the cards. At the beginning of each chapter for the minors, you have a summary, and then you have the same amount of information for each of the cards in the minors. So that's a court, but you also have that same kind of information for, and even more. Some of them are, look, some of them are more than like 2.5 pages. They're not all, and this one's a little shorter. So there's the 4 of Swords, 3 of Swords, 2 of Swords. It varies depending on which card it is. And then at the back of the book, this is a wealth of information. Okay. This chapter here, Amber, stop it. My doggie's getting impatient. This chapter here has a complete meditation, which you can record for centering. And then there's another one here for grounding. So if you are new to reading the tarot, her chapter on setting yourself up for reading is it's absolutely brilliant. And I would highly recommend reading that. She goes into great detail on tarot ethics, and it's humorous, it's personal, and it's really, really informative. And then she shares her version of the Celtic cross and what she actually says as she lays down each of the cards. And then at the very back, there's one other thing I wanted to show you. Oh, this is cool. These are the rules for Tarot Chi. So if you actually wanted to learn how to play the card game using the 78 cards, she has all the instructions here for Tarot Chi. And then in the last appendix, she shows you some of her, the evolution of the artwork, which is just great. Yeah. So, hashtag first tarot deck, or I should say first tarot deck that I really connected with. So thank you for watching, and as always, I look forward to chatting with you in the comments below. Let me know what your first tarot deck was. Stay well, my friends. Namaste.